Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. Trust, they say, is the foundation of a marriage. I always believed that. I had no reason not to. Sophia, my wife of 10 years and the mother of our 2 kids, was kind, compassionate, and, above all, loyal. At least that's what I thought. For months, Sophia had been visiting her sister Rebecca more frequently than usual. She said Rebecca needed her support. "I mean, she's dealing with so much, Daniel," she'd say, concern clouding her green eyes. 3 kids, a full-time job, and Alex isn't exactly the most helpful husband. It all seemed so reasonable. Rebecca and Sophia were close, and family meant everything to her. I admired that about Sophia, how she'd drop everything to help someone in need. Little did I know she wasn't helping Rebecca at all. It started with small things. One night, Sophia came home later than usual, her hair slightly disheveled and her face flushed. Rebecca's youngest threw a tantrum, she explained hurriedly when I asked. You know how toddlers are. Her phone buzzed incessantly after that. She'd smile at the screen, sometimes even giggling before tucking it away. When I asked who it was, she'd say, "Rebecca, we're planning a surprise for Mom's birthday." I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? But as weeks passed, things didn't add up. Her visits to Rebecca's house grew longer and more frequent, and she was always distracted when she was home, like her mind was somewhere else, or with someone else. One Friday evening, as we sat on the couch, I tried to bring it up. "Sophia," I began cautiously, "don't you think you've been spending a lot of time at Rebecca's?" She looked up from her phone, feigning surprise. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're there almost every other day now. Is everything okay? You're not burning yourself out, are you?" Her laugh was light, dismissive. "Burning out? Daniel, please. I'm helping my sister. Isn't that what family does?" "I get that," I said, my tone soft but probing. "But it's not just about you. I miss you. We miss you." Her smile faltered, just for a moment, before she placed her hand over mine. "You're sweet, really. But you don't need to worry. Everything's fine." It wasn't fine. The last few weeks, Sophia had been different. At first, I couldn't put my finger on it. It wasn't obvious, just subtle changes in how she acted around me and the kids. She laughed a little less, avoided my gaze a little more, and seemed perpetually distracted, as if her mind was somewhere else entirely. The distance between us had grown, emotionally and physically. It had been nearly 2 weeks since we'd had any sort of intimate moment, the kind that reminded me why we fell in love in the first place. Whenever I tried to bring us closer, she'd pull away with excuses about being tired or overwhelmed by her time at Rebecca's. The kids had noticed too. They'd asked why Mom seemed so quiet lately, or why she was spending so much time at Aunt Rebecca's house. I tried to reassure them, but it was getting harder to ignore the growing cracks in our family. That growing unease gnawed at me, forcing me to pay closer attention to everything she did. And then, on a random Thursday afternoon, it all came crashing down. I was driving back from a meeting and decided to take a shortcut through the park near Rebecca's neighborhood. The kids were at their after-school activities, and Sophia had said she was going over to help Rebecca with something. That's when I saw them, Sophia and Alex. They were sitting together on a bench beneath a large oak tree, their heads close, as if sharing a secret. Sophia's hand rested lightly on his arm, and their laughter filled the air, a sound that seemed too intimate to be shared in public. They weren't just laughing. They were entirely absorbed in each other, lost in their own little world. I pulled over, my stomach knotting. They didn't see me, too engrossed in whatever conversation they were having. I watched for a few minutes, feeling like an intruder in my own life. My chest tightened as Sophia leaned in and playfully shoved Alex's shoulder, a gesture far too familiar for someone who was supposed to be helping her sister's family. When Sophia got home that evening, I was waiting in the kitchen. "Hey," I said casually as she walked in, setting her purse on the counter. "How was your day?" "Good," she replied, a little too brightly. "Just busy. Ran some errands, spent time at Rebecca's." "Oh yeah?" I said, trying to keep my tone even. "What did you guys do?" She shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "Nothing much. Helped her organize the kids' toys, talked about the usual stuff. You know how it is." I nodded slowly, but something about the way she answered didn't sit right. She was clearly lying, and deep down, I knew there was something more serious going on with her and Alex. That night, as she showered, I sat in the living room staring at her phone on the coffee table. She rarely let it out of her sight these days, always keeping it face down or tucked away in her bag. But tonight, she'd forgotten it. I wasn't proud of what I was about to do, but I needed answers. My hand shook as I unlocked it. The messages were right there, a text thread with Alex. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Part of me didn't want to see what was inside, didn't want to confirm what I already suspected. But the other part of me, the part that couldn't live with the lies, forced me to open it. And there it was. The texts weren't explicit, but they didn't need to be. "Last night was amazing," one read. "I can't stop thinking about you." "I miss you already," said another. Sophia's replies were just as damning. "You make me feel alive in a way I haven't in years." Years? My hands clenched the phone so tightly I thought it might shatter. They talked about meeting at the park, about sneaking moments together when Rebecca wasn't home, about the thrill of hiding their affair. The blood roared in my ears as I read message after message, each one a knife in my chest. This wasn't just a fling. This was calculated, deliberate, and cruel. I couldn't just sit here and wait. I had to know more. I had to get everything, every piece of evidence before I could expose them. The messages on her phone were damning, but I needed something more concrete, something that would leave no room for doubt when I confronted her and Alex. I needed their trail. The next day, I took a day off work. I wasn't going to just sit and stew. I had to see with my own eyes, get undeniable proof that Sophia and Alex weren't just exchanging words. They were crossing a line that couldn't be ignored. I watched Sophia leave the house that afternoon, as she often did, pretending to head over to Rebecca's place. As soon as she pulled out of the driveway, I slipped into my car and followed her, keeping a discreet distance. I didn't want her to notice me, but I couldn't let her out of my sight. She drove down the familiar streets, the same route she always took to Rebecca's house. But instead of turning left as I expected, she turned right. My heart raced as I followed her, wondering where she was going. The route she was taking led toward the outskirts of town. I felt the anger rise in my chest, but I held my breath. I couldn't afford to act rashly now. I had to be patient. She pulled into a hotel parking lot, and I parked further down the street, waiting for her to get out. I felt like I was suffocating in the heat of the moment, but I stayed in the car, hidden. My hands clenched the steering wheel, trembling as I watched her walk into the hotel. Then, a few minutes later, I saw Alex. He wasn't far behind, striding purposefully towards the hotel entrance. My heart slammed against my ribs. This was it. This was the moment I'd been dreading. I had to get close, closer than I'd ever been before. I had to see them together. I waited for a while, not wanting to rush things. My heart pounded, but I stayed hidden, watching as they walked toward the entrance of the hotel, still talking and laughing softly. The chemistry between them was undeniable, too intimate, too real. Then, just before they stepped inside, Alex leaned in and kissed Sophia, right there, at the entrance of the hotel, as if they were just another couple in the world. My heart stopped. I knew I had to act fast. I raised my phone, capturing the moment just before they pulled apart, their hands lingering on each other. I could barely steady my shaking fingers as I snapped a few shots, making sure I had enough proof. But I wasn't done. I had to know where they were going next. I had to be sure this wasn't a one-time thing, that this wasn't just a secret stolen moment. They headed inside the hotel shortly after the kiss, and I followed from a distance, making sure they didn't see me. I couldn't risk being caught, so I waited near the entrance, watching them from across the lobby. They didn't notice me as they checked in and walked toward the elevator. I had a split second to make a choice. I watched as they entered the elevator, and I quickly ducked out of view, taking the stairs to the first floor, pushing myself to move as fast as I could. I didn't know which floor or room they were heading to, but I knew the layout of the hotel. It was a small boutique hotel with only 4 floors. The hotel's elevator was old, slow, and loud. I didn't hear it stop at the first, nor at the second floor, so I continued, taking the stairs up. When I reached the 3rd floor, I could hear it creaking to a stop. I stayed hidden in a corner of the hallway with a clear view of the elevator doors. It didn't take long for them to open with a familiar ding, and I watched as Alex and Sophia stepped out into the hallway, still close, still wrapped in each other's world. My heart pounded in my chest, but I held my breath and pulled out my phone, quickly starting to record. Sophia laughed at something Alex said, her eyes bright with that same look I hadn't seen in a long time. Then Alex leaned in, and they kissed. Right there, in the hotel hallway. The kiss was slow and deliberate, as if they were the only two people in the world. I couldn't look away. Every second, every moment was undeniable proof. My phone trembled in my hand, its weight heavy with the truth I had captured. They finally pulled away from each other, their faces flushed, smiles betraying a secret I never wanted to know. Without a word, they turned and walked down the hall, disappearing into room 312. I stood frozen, still holding the phone, the sting of betrayal cutting through me like a blade. But now, I had what I came for: the evidence, the photos, the timestamps, everything I needed to expose them. I didn't need to see them leave. I already knew enough. I had the undeniable proof: their kiss, the hotel room, the precise details of their affair. I wasn't just going to confront Sophia alone. I was going to make sure she felt the full weight of her actions. She wasn't going to get away with destroying everything we'd built without facing the consequences. As I got into my car, my hands still shaking, I could barely breathe. The storm of anger raged inside me. The confrontation was coming soon. Today would be the last day Sophia would be able to pretend she hadn't shattered everything. Tomorrow, at the family gathering, I would expose it all. I had to do this. For me. For Rebecca. For the kids. Sophia had no idea what was coming. That day, I barely slept. The hours felt like an eternity as I steeled myself for what was about to unfold. The family gathering was for Sophia's mother's birthday, a big event where both families would be present. If Sophia wanted to destroy our family, I'd make sure everyone saw the wreckage. When the time came, I made my way to the party, my mind racing with thoughts of how it would all play out. The house was filled with family members, laughter echoing through the walls, but I couldn't shake the tightness in my chest. Every sound seemed to make my heart race faster. I stood in the middle of her mother's living room, surrounded by smiling relatives. Sophia was in the kitchen, laughing with Alex as they carried out a cake. It was almost poetic. How perfect they looked together, yet how rotten their bond truly was. As everyone sang happy birthday, I stepped forward. "I have something to say," I announced, my voice cutting through the festive air. All eyes turned to me. Sophia's smile faltered, and Alex's face went pale. "What is it, Daniel?" my mother-in-law asked, concerned. I pulled out my phone and played the recording. The room fell silent, save for the muffled sounds of Sophia and Alex's laughter on the video. "Turns out," I said, my voice cold and steady, "Sophia's visits weren't about helping Rebecca. They were about helping herself, by getting closer to her sister's husband." Gasps echoed through the room. My mother-in-law's face crumpled as she turned to Alex. "Is this true?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Alex stammered, I can explain." But there was no explaining it. Sophia lunged toward me, her face a mask of desperation. "Daniel, please, let's talk about this. Not here. Not like this." I stepped back, shaking my head. "Talk? You've done enough talking, with Alex." Rebecca slapped Alex across the face, her voice breaking. "How could you? With my sister!" The party dissolved into chaos. Relatives shouted, children cried, and Rebecca stormed out, dragging her children with her. Sophia stood there, her face streaked with tears as the family she claimed to love so much fell apart around her. In the end, Sophia got what she deserved. Rebecca filed for divorce, and I did the same. The once tight family ties Sophia worked so hard to strengthen were left in tatters. As I signed the divorce papers, Sophia tried one last time to appeal to me. "Daniel," she pleaded, her voice cracking, "I made a mistake, but I love you. Please don't do this." I looked at her, feeling nothing but contempt. "You made your choices, Sophia. Now you live with them." And with that, I walked away. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just break hearts, it destroys everything in its path. Sophia and Alex thought they could hide their affair, but secrets always come to light. And when they do, the fallout is inevitable. Thank you for watching.